our panelists are not going to go, hey, I'll buy that right now. I mean, if they did, it would probably be off camera, and that would be an amazing success story. But this is for educational purposes. It's for you to practice. And you're all going to be receiving notes on that pitch. So that's the point of this, to receive notes of what you can do better, what you're already doing well, and how to elevate that.
I want to start by thanking everybody who submitted to the I Say Pitch Challenge. We got a ton of pitches and some really, really fabulous ones. It was very hard to come up with our 3 winners. I'm going to do a little shout out to our finalists too, because, and here they are, I'm going to put it in the comments. So these are the finalists: Christopher Kramer, Katie Cronin, Bethany Edgoose, Kasim Fazal, Christine Freshy, Travis Gregory, Kamala Lane, Michael Long, Shannon Morrill, Zeta Santizo, Julia Schubauer, and Megan Selden, and Karen Shaw, and John St. Pierre. That's 4 together. Daniel Shar, Varta Tarassian, Shane Walsh-Smith, Connie Weidel, Wendy Jean Wilkins, Megan Woodard, and Robin Paris, also a writing duo. I'm sure I butchered some names. I apologize. But congratulations to all of you finalists. We're actually going to highlight the finalists. Their pitches are going to be on our site at some point to give a little love to all of the great content that we got. So thanks everybody for submitting. We're probably going to do this again soon because it was such a fantastic experience for all of us to watch, and hopefully for all of you. I know we gave you an itty bitty amount of time, just a few days to prep and send it in, and we'll give you a little more time this time, and we'll see how it goes.
Hello to Sandino and Shannon, who I've met this week during the
long time no see.
Hey, nice to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you again, and hi to Matt and Quinn. Nice to meet you guys. What I'm pitching is a horror thriller, a contained horror thriller called The Pit. And if you're looking for comps, it's kind of Silence of the Lamb meets Buried, or Buried. I don't know how you say it. Buried? Buried? What do you guys do?
Tomato.
And of course, it starts with great characters. Characters you're going to be cheering for, you're going to be rooting for, you're going to be hating, you're going to be hissing, you're going to be booing. And at the core, it's a horror thriller, but it's also about redemption of our main character. And our main character is a mother. She's in her late 30s. She has a teenage daughter. We first meet her doing CrossFit. She's one of these CrossFit badasses. And she's sort of right in the middle of a competition. She's flipping tires. She's right in it. She's grunting. She's going up the pegboard. We see crowds cheering, but there's somebody not cheering, and it's her teenage daughter. And we soon find out that the mother has just battled cancer. And if you know anybody who's battled cancer, sometimes it becomes so singular, you push people away that you love, whether it's your husband or your daughter, and that's what's happened to her. And so she's now estranged from her daughter, and she's even wondering, does her teenage daughter even need her anymore? And we suddenly switch, and we're now in the parking lot of the CrossFit where they just were, and the mother and daughter are kidnapped by 2 serial killers. A mentor, sort of an older type, think Mickey Rourke, and a younger type, kind of more slight, think a Jesse Eisenberg type. And they're now kidnapped, and that's the first 5 pages of the script right there. So it's really fast paced. And we get into it where the mentor says to the apprentice, I need you to take these 2, take them to our remote ranch. And if you're thinking you guys are in LA, that's where the story's set. It's kind of out towards Pomona, even more towards Joshua Tree where those windmills are, and it's desert. And every house is about 1 mile or 2 miles apart. So he asks the apprentice to take him out there because he wants to get them ready. So the apprentice takes him out there, and they're drugged, and they start to come to, and he gets the daughter set up, and the mother battles back. And she battles back the apprentice, and they're having this terrible battle, and they struggle, and they fall outside. And as they go outside, they fall into an unfinished pool, the pit. 15-foot-high walls, mud, sludge on the bottom. It's almost like a level of hell. We actually learn there are bodies buried down there as well, eventually. And now we have the mother down there with the other serial killer who's slightly hurt and injured. The 2 of them need to get out for different reasons. They have to work together. She needs to get out to save her life and her daughter's life. He wants to get out because he's terrified of this mentor who's coming, who he's fucked up, and now he's worried for his own life. So now you have these enemies now having to work together to try to get out. And at the same time, you have the ticking clock of the mentor coming down the road. And there's also, they have a moment in the pit. Well, what if something happens to him? What if he's in a car crash and nobody's coming? We really need to get out of here. At the same time, we also have police and her husband trying to search for them. So we have all this coming together in one spot towards the pit. Now the mother hears her daughter eventually comes out of her drug, and her daughter starts calling for her, and she has conversations with her daughter, and she starts to realize her daughter does need her, and she needs to get out of there more than anything. And so the question is, well, how do they get out? And there's a nice moment where the apprentice serial killer and the mother start to bond. It's that Stockholm syndrome thing. It's sort of, she learns that the apprentice lost his mother to cancer, and that he didn't want this life, and he's fallen into it with this mentor, and you start to maybe even start to feel sadness for this apprentice serial killer. And then there's a twist. You realize this apprentice is just as evil as the mentor. He might be the brains to it all. And the mother fights him and gets out of the pit. And she gets out of the pit by doing that moment that everybody's going to talk about after they leave the theater. She finds one of the dead bodies of the victims, and she actually goes in there and has to pull the ribs out of that body. And she pulls the ribs out of this victim and uses it like a pegboard to get out of the pit. So it's the scene people are going to talk about, but it's also, again, this dead body, this victim helping this mother get out. The mother gets out, and now she has one last gauntlet. The mentors come, and she needs to battle that guy to free her daughter. And so that's the pit. That's my 90-second pitch. Done. If I was there, or if I had my act together a little more, there is a mood board I have for it to show you comps of images and so forth. It's actually been read by a couple directors, a female director named Bethany Anderson Brooke, who's done a short, not a short film, done a film that's played the circuit, film festival circuit called Burning Kentucky, and another director named John Poliquin, who directed Grave Encounters 2, a horror film. He's Canadian, so we could shoot it up in Canada. He's read it and also is sort of attached to direct. So that's the pit.
First of all, Kevin, thank you so much for giving a pitch in 90 seconds. I can only imagine how stressful it is to try and compress a 90-minute film into a 1 minute per second take. And so in answering these, I'm gonna ask the same questions that I would ask over a regular pitch, and just like try and get a better sense of the story. Contextually, for all of for everyone out there that's listening, if I'm looking for films to shoot pre or post COVID, immediately my ears perk up, because The Pit obviously seems like a 4 or 5 person film that can be done very cheaply with a singular location and would be very COVID proof. So in that regard, like, it's something that could possibly be up and running sooner rather than later, regardless of however we felt about the pitch. Kevin, my question to you is, the first question I have, why, and I'm going to start with a couple like production questions. Why don't the victim or the younger serial killer and then the mother try and kill each other immediately when they get in the pit? Like, what's the catalyst for them to actually become friends? Because if I'm trying to rescue my daughter and I push this dude into a pit and I land on top of him, my first thing is like, I need to kill this guy in order to like make sure that I survive. So what prevents them from doing so? So
they fall 50 feet tumbling into the air. She falls on top of him. He gets injured. His knee is twisted and his arm is twisted backwards. So he's injured and she's not. So in that moment, he's not as much as a threat to her. But again, we have a twist where he's been faking it. And so there is this moment where he tries to kill her. She falls asleep in the pit and he tries to kill her, and she wakes up just in the time. So
I guess from my perspective, right, like obviously you're talking about a movie where the primary relationship is a mother and a daughter and they don't connect. And so what I see the promise in this, and what I'm trying to get to, is if you have a younger serial killer and an older mother figure, there's a surrogate family relationship there. And so is the intention for the mother to see something in this kid, see something of her daughter, or like some sort of like surrogate relationship there, and that's why she doesn't kill her? I'm just trying to get a sense of what their central conflict is going to be when they're in the pit before it's sort of, because in order for that twist to work, and I think it's a great twist, it's important that I have to actually care about this kid and make sure that, I believe that he doesn't want what he wants, so that when the twist happens, it really like hits me on the head.
Yeah, you find out, like, he tells her, you believe it, because we're going to have a great actor in it. that he lost his mother to cancer, and he's been bouncing around orphanage, and this mentor took care of him and turned him into the life of a serial killer, and it's not what he wanted, and you start to feel emotion for him, and you start to, as an audience, you get fooled. You start to go, oh, this guy, it's not the life he wanted. He's not the killer. It's the other guy. He's under his thumb. He's not the killer. Like this guy, the mentor does all the killing. He just gets them together, but he's so oppressed by this guy. It's almost like an abusive relationship. He can't get out. And so you start to believe that, and the mother starts to believe that as well, and starts to see echoes of like, wait, this is what happens when you don't have a mother, when, you could lose that sort of guidance and so forth. And so that's where the twist works, because the audience starts to listen to him and believe him as well.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. No, thank you, Sandino.
I'm going to piggyback on what Sandino had to say just about, in this post-COVID world and everything, we're actively looking for, simple minimal location type projects to dig our teeth into as well. So it was a great pitch. You painted a really clear, concise story. I'm a big fan of female protagonists in any genre. I think we need more of it, and very intriguing. I'd love to read the script.
Thanks, Matt. I mean, when I pitched it to Shannon, it's funny, when I wrote it, I had somebody like Gabrielle Union as the lead, or Hal Berry. It's perfect for any sort of actress between the ages of like 35 to 55 in Hollywood. And it's great for an actress who wants to go to a younger demo to appeal to that horror crowd,
I love that. I love the lead character being a strong older woman. That's incredible. That's something that I have not seen. In the pitch itself, in the beginning, you did get a little caught in the weeds of some details, where they were going in the desert, stuff like that I didn't necessarily need. And for me, it wasn't until you got to the point of, in the pit, it's the mother and her tormentor stuck in the pit together. And that was when I went, oh, this is something I haven't seen before. This is what I want to listen to. So try to get to that point quicker. It's of course it's good to know, mother and daughter, they don't get along. These two guys who, are just sadistic serial killers, but the pit is really, it's called the pit, like get to the pit.
In less than 90 seconds. That's what I have to keep reminding myself, like he did this this was literally like 90 seconds. Holy crap,
Yeah, and the good news, Kevin, is like at least I'm engaged on that level. Like right now, my next thought is like going like, is it a stronger story? Like, does it make more sense for this daughter to be alive, or is she a stronger character if she lost her daughter? Like, is there a stronger character there that really cements the relationship between, this woman and this young boy? Like, does it do more for her character if she recently lost a daughter and she's trying to fill that void, or if she's trying to actually save the daughter? So I'm engaged in that regard. And so, this would be, if I'm in a pitch, like certain things that I'm like, because obviously most of the time in a pitch, the story isn't written. And so there's room for growth. And so in this case, this would be like something like, would you be open to changing this element, or would you be open to doing that to kind of like create another story? So I'm engaged in that regard.
Yeah, and just so you know, I'm open to anything. I'm not one of these writers where it's sort of like, no, my words are gold. It's like, no, what can I do to make this happen,
Well, I'm going to play the Paula Abdul of the judges. Very good job. I wanted to point out some of the things that you did well, just for those people who are listening. I think sometimes it's hard for writers to remember that there's always an emotional arc that's just as important as the steps that we're taking to reach the physical goal or the external goal. So I appreciated knowing up front what was going on with mom and what was going on with daughter, not necessarily staying in there long, but you were able to paint that picture, and you did two things at once. One was you showed us mom's social proof. It's very important that we know that our protagonist can actually reach the goal that we're setting for them. If she wasn't someone who was in the gym and, using the pegs and doing all those things, we wouldn't think that she'd be able to fight off the serial killers later, or that if she fell in that pit, she'd be able to get out. But you show us that visually. I can see her in there working out and doing whatever it is that she's doing. And then you immediately use that same scene to show, but there's something going on with daughter. And I'm glad that you didn't get caught up in what was going on with daughter, because what we need is the feeling. If everyone else is applauding and daughter isn't, I know something's wrong. That's it. That's all I need to know, that there's something that's happening there. And then because later on we realize mom gets free, but daughter doesn't. And then she's stuck in there with another younger person, and we'll see her start to relate to him and therefore learn that she needs to be with her daughter. Again, that's all the information I need, but it still tracks her emotional journey and not just the physical steps that she has to take.
Thank you, Shannon. Yeah, and the film ends just, with a high note where the mother and daughter, of course, are alive, and they're in a CrossFit mother and daughter, and there's a 15-foot wall, another wall, and the two of them get over it together. So it's kind of
there you go. That's telling a story in images right there.
Yeah.
That's smart.
yeah, that's exactly it. So they both get over that wall at the end.
We are going to see now Julia Skikovich, our other Fast Track fellow.
Hi, I'm Julia, and I am Canadian, and I'm living in the Toronto area, and I'm going to be pitching Survivor's BS to you today. So Survivor's BS is a limited run TV series, and when you get right down to it, it's really a story about contrasts and labels. So I would like you to meet rape victim and brain tumor. Blair Spooner is Circus FM's wonderkin, with a mouth so loud all of Toronto listens, but when she's unexpectedly diagnosed with a brain tumor, she's looking at an uncertain future. Years of doing the morning show has meant early to bed and early to rise has left Spooner single and boring by age 25, so she doesn't feel like she has a lot left to show in her life, and she also doesn't feel like she has much to help her through this mess, besides her wackadoodle of a sister and maybe her fanboy producer. Then there's also work, but with her dick of a co-host nearly jizzing his pants at even the thought of her vacant hosting chair, it's really not much to live for. Grasping at straws, Spooner starts to search for a roommate that might be able to help her through treatment. The hunt begins just as Biljana, a child of refugees, is cowering from the public eye, as her he said, she said course against two-star basketball players heads into court. Despite a publication ban on Bailey's name, it feels like the whole city is a Twitter about what happened to her, as Gar's sorry she ever reported in the first place. She realizes, to make it all go away, it might be her who needs to disappear. But her calculated move to get out of the public eye sees her end up on Spooner's doorstep, roommate contract in hand. When Spooner ends up covering Billy's trial, she comes to the realization of who Billy is and the exclusive insider access it could give her to that story. It's going to test both women's definition of friendship and family as they try to balance empathy with self-care and self-interest while living in a hole. And it raises the question of, in situations like this, are there ever really survivors in the end? Survivor's BS challenges the concept of survivorship. It's about public versus private in the digital age, and it questions the question of legitimacy when society starts placing labels on you. It's best suited for streamers, and you could think of it as if Girls had the big C with an unbelievable twist. And as a former journalist and someone who happens to deal with a complicated medical condition, I can tell you that this story isn't just BS.
First of all, on the positive, coming from Northern Michigan on the border of Canada myself, I just love listening to Canadians. Every time you say a boat, it's like, it warms my heart. It makes me feel like I'm at home. So I love that. You obviously have a very clear and concise vision for your story. Your character development is there. The structure of your story is there. I'm going to jump quickly to the constructive because, there's 4 of us and I want to give other people a chance to elaborate. For me personally, the struggle I had with that, and it's such a compressed amount of time. I mean, in reality, we have to remind ourselves that it would never be this short. If it was, Julia, if it was you and I having our own private Zoom conversation, I'd be sitting here getting to know who you are, your family, where you're from, what your favorite whatever is, and then we would start talking about your story. So keeping all of that in mind, trying to compress this into what this is as a 90-second quote-unquote pitch, I got lost very quickly on because it felt very clinical to me instead of you telling me an engaging story. It was like you jumped into it. You were all, like just going straight at it. I feel like I could have gotten more out of it by reading it on a piece of paper than by you having the opportunity to pitch it to me. So bring out, like, I would want to feel more of your personality and where this comes from within you to create this story and to tell this story to me. Instead, I found myself struggling to keep up. So like, okay, wait, what did she say? Okay, she's talking about this. Okay, and you were going and going and going. It just felt very clinical to me. So I'm going to leave it at that, because I would like an opportunity, if it's okay with ISA, to be able to hear this outside of this forum where we can actually have a conversation, if that's a possibility.
I have a question for you, Julia. Why do you see this as a limited series instead of a movie or an ongoing series?
Just to have more time to deal with the progression of the court case and progression of the treatment, as well as exploring the arc of the characters. And again, like, since I'm Canadian, part of me is looking at it through the Canadian lenses of where I would pitch it in Canada, and the structure of the series that some, like a place like CBC might pick up, where it's very common for them to pick up like a 8-episode limited run series. So the concept, the way I've mapped it out, I was able to get it to go into like an 8-episode format fairly easily. I'm not opposed to it being thinking about it as a feature. I have thought about it as a feature before, but television writing is more of where my focus is.
Yeah, so that's good to know. I don't know anything about Canadian TV or what they buy or what they don't buy, but what I heard from the pitch was, at the core of it is really an odd couple relationship between two characters that you have really filled out very well. And that in itself is an engine that can fuel an ongoing series very easily. Whatever the, court case is, there is a tension there between those characters that can continue to carry a story. So don't feel like you have to limit yourself because what you're pitching doesn't look like other series on the air, other ongoing series on the air. Something else I wanted to suggest, I might have missed this in the beginning, but maybe think of it as a half-hour dramedy or even a half-hour drama. Some of the streamers are doing those these days, which if you feel like maybe you don't have enough plot, of course, hour-longs they eat up a lot of plot. Yeah. If it's mostly a character study, which it sounds like this is, then a half-hour drama can definitely be a way to go.
Yeah, I've definitely had some conversation. It was interesting that you said the odd couple relationship and focus on the roommate story, because I've had some conversations before about if it were to expand beyond the first season, like what would that look like? And it definitely would have to be the roommate relationship. And I see absolutely how that's the engine. The question would then be like, what, I guess, to go from to think beyond the first season, I'm still thinking about if we did if it did continue into a second or a third season, which again is something that CBC also does regularly, like what the engine of the relationship would exist there, but what the story would be after they've dealt with this initial issue. And I haven't quite pinpointed that down. I do have some ideas of how to do that for second and third season and to restructure it. But I appreciate that you brought that up note as well, because I've heard that one too. Yeah, it's a great note, and I'm glad that at least the engine there is coming through.
Yeah, and I mean, even just off the top of my head, I can see season 2 being these two roommates joining up together to take down, the sexist anchor boss guy, in their different ways. So I think there really is a lot that you can do there.
Thank you.
I'm gonna say I cheated on this one, and I already read Julia's spec, which is fantastic. So Quinn, Shannon, Matt, if you guys haven't already done so, you absolutely should. And my one thing to you, Julia, that I'm gonna say, and once again on the auspices of this being 90 seconds to 2 minutes, and how the hell are you gonna pitch an entire show in 90 seconds to 2 minutes? I would say like the shorter the pitch gets, the more important tone is. And like the best part, like in your spec, and sorry, like cover your ears if you hate language, like you have, once again, we talked about it earlier today, you have somebody dressed up as Raggedy Andy like effing somebody with a strap on in the first like page and a half. It's funny, it's bold. That didn't come across in this pitch right here. The closest that
Not
it came
at all.
to the moment when you say like jizzed on somebody or blah blah blah, that's the tone that you need to go for in like a 90-second pitch, because that's going to give us a feeling of what the show actually is. It leaves us with like oh, okay. And like, once again, we're investing in you as a person. And I'm looking at some of the comments on the whole side note right here about like everybody, saying that, you're not actors, you're not performers, and you need to sell yourself. I think that's a bit disingenuous, because we're not asking you to like sell a product. We're asking you to like show us your passion and be genuine with what you feel. Like, that's what it's about. Like, we're saying put on an actor's hat. We're not telling you to actually like act the thing out, right?
No,
it's
not at all.
responding to your passion and responding to your tone, and I think like that's really important to us. It really is. And so I feel that like, it's hard. It's incredibly like you guys have the most difficult job on the planet, which is creating a blueprint out of nothing. And yeah, you're not actors, you're not performers. It's incredibly hard to sell yourself, but like, frankly, that's what needs to happen. It's sad, but it's true. And like, you need to actually like show us why this thing needs to be made. And the shorter a pitch gets, the more tone becomes important. And so if you can sell us on tone, if you can sell us on that joke, then once again, then we can ask the questions about how clinical it is, or we can ask like finer points. But if we're intrigued based on like how you're passionate about something, like that's what really gets us.
Okay.
And so I would say like, just it's selling has such a disingenuous connotation. It's just believing in what you are pitching, and so I just wanted to respond to those comments right there.
I'm glad you did, Sandino.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you did, because I was reading them as well. And I get the frustration. We all understand where you guys are coming from as writers, but again, Sandino, you had a chance to read the spec. I haven't read it. I'm literally going in, and I'm doing this on purpose because I want to hear the pitch. I want to try and find my passion for what you're selling. And if you had, and I think everyone should practice doing this, but if you had given us the opening hook with a little bit more passion, slowed it down and let us live in the world for that first page or two, and then we heard the idea of effing someone with a bit, we would have been hooked. We would have been like, oh damn, that's bold. That's really bold. Okay, I'm in. Now you got me. You know what I mean? So take that with you forward.
Yeah. Great job, Julia. So I didn't read the script, but I did read the synopsis.
Yes.
And so I'm always, I'm a teacher. I teach screenwriting at NYPA. So I always come from that point of view. So I think what we learned today is that reading it on a page gives you a different experience from hearing it out loud.
Yeah.
And so because I've read your synopsis, I could tell that you were reading your synopsis to us right now. Right?
Yeah, pretty close to it.
Yeah, pretty close.
Because I didn't have a chance to have it as memorized as I wanted.
That's okay.
To.
But for me, it's not about memory. Sometimes it's just about where the emphasis is, where the pauses are, what information you give us first, what information you give us last. Obviously tone, which was going to be another one of my notes, but there are moments that are funny within that's on the page, but I get to read it in whatever voice I want to because I'm reading it, right? Yeah. But if you're going to be the one presenting it, then what's the information that you can tell in your way so that I hear it in a more interesting way, right? And so I know a lot of writers out there, because my clients do this as well, they write out their pitches, and that's great. And that might be good on a leave behind, because when I did read your synopsis, I said, I would want to read this screenplay, right? But just because it looks good on here doesn't mean that those exact words are going to sound the same and give the same experience when it comes out of your mouth. So some of that just comes from practicing. Some of that comes from just understanding, like they said before, what is the hook when it comes out of my mouth? what do I need to say earlier? You know what I mean? To get people excited about it before I start going into the details. I appreciated knowing up front that it was a limited series.
Mhm.
But to Quinn's point, if this is something that you're going to look at as something longer than a limited series, then for me, it's no longer about the court case and it is about the character.
Yeah.
So now you're pitching it from a totally different place. This is not about her brain tumor and it's not about the court case. It's about them. And they just so happen to have this brain tumor and have this court case, because when the court case is over and when she's saved in surgery, I'm still here because I care about these two people. So that again will change your entire screenplay. And the hook for this season might be these other things that they're going through, but that's not the part that we're focused on first. We're focused on just getting to know who these women are and what's going on in this world.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Julia. Fantastic
Julia.
job.
Thank you.
Great
Appreciate it.
feedback. Okay, so next up we have Jake. He is one of the winners of the ISA Pitch Challenge.
I'm Jake. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm going to jump into this pitch right here. So I have a comedic series called Just Call Me Ripley that is a coming out story loosely based on my own experience of coming out. We follow the story of Ripley, who is a 27-year-old bagel shop employee who is just plain stuck. She is stuck working at a crappy bagel shop, living with her ex-fiance, who she wasn't that into, named Dan. And most of all, she is just completely stuck, not knowing if she's gay or straight or like where she falls on that spectrum. And this is a different coming out story than one that we usually see in the media. A lot of times coming out stories focus on the trauma or the tears that comes with the coming out process. I wanted to give a coming out story for queer people. So it's about the internal process. It's about learning who you're attracted to and how to learn to date as a 27-year-old. And also, what does it feel like to fall in love for the first time? All these things that everyone can relate to, but queer people don't get to see themselves in that often. Also, coming from Chicago, I love character acting. I love Second City and character performers. So this script is filled with queer characters that we've not seen on TV before. People like Ripley's neighbor, Butch Donna, who is a butch lesbian, middle-aged, thinks she has all the gay answers, considers herself the gay Yoda, but does not have her own life figured out. Also, like Ripley's place that she works at, this bagel shop, is populated by queer characters. Her manager, Beetle, is this like Gen Z ultimate queer. He bedazzled his uniform. He is obsessed with love. He is totally into helping Ripley come out or making her come out. And we just follow the story of Ripley. And the best thing about this is it provides an access point for a straight audience as well, because we all have to learn to come out in some way. We're either figuring out that we're not living life authentically to ourselves, however that means, and we have to get there some way. And this is just a coming out story that uses comedy to get through that process.
Fantastic.
I really like that.
Well, Jake, can I ask why bagels? What's the significance of the bagel shop?
I love the word bialy, and I wanted them to say it a whole bunch.
It's a good
If
reason.
you've ever been to Chicago, they have phenomenal bagels in Chicago. It's the water in the city.
It's the water, yeah. I'm from the East Coast originally, so I don't always.
It doesn't compare to New York. Nothing
not
compares to New York.
They don't
but-
boil them here, but yeah.
Well, I will say this, for me at least, this is a fantastic example of just setting a tone, getting me intrigued in what your idea is, what the characters are. And if this were, full pitch, and obviously it's TV, it's not features, I would start asking questions about like, what's the primary relationship in the film? How's it gonna, in that regard. But this is, I would say, a fantastic 90-second pitch that completely got me intrigued into the tone and the potential of this idea. So good job.
Yes, and I loved how you connected the story to yourself, why you're the right writer for this. That's something that I don't actually see a whole lot. Why are you the person to tell this story? And I loved the way that you tied the story and the characters and the themes and who's the audience. You tied all of that in really smoothly, really beautifully. I thought you did a really good job.
Yeah, you hit a grand slam with this. I mean, it's from just from the moment that you appeared on screen with that smile, your energy was coming through. that's what we've been talking about. That's what Sandino was bringing up from the comments about, it's not about having to, be an actor and sell everything. It's about like bringing that energy, you invite us in with a smile, you've got us hooked, you start telling your story. It's a unique story. The characters are intriguing. It, like this is a very personal story for you as well, which we could feel from the moment you opened your mouth and started talking about it. I want to grab a drink with you over Zoom and like have happy hour and I want to hear how seasons 2 through 5 go. Tell me what happens. I want to hear more.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So exactly what everybody else has said. The tone is obviously there. You were vulnerable enough to let us know that you're a part of this story, which means you are going to have a particular voice to bring to it that maybe someone else wouldn't be able to bring. You do a really good job with telling us who the characters are around us and giving us something short and descriptive so that we remember them. Because a lot of times people will introduce us to 15 characters and it's like, I don't know.
They're interchangeable.
Right,
Yeah.
they're interchangeable and you don't know who anyone is talking about anymore. So great job with, even though you introduced us to maybe some people who may just be sideline people, but they help to shape the world, that you're pitching. So if we did have more time, things that I would want to know and questions that I would ask is, what kind of stuff do they get into? Yeah. So I got a lot about who they are, which is great, right? But it's like, okay, now what am I going to be seeing these crazy folks doing? How are they going to help and or hurt your protagonist to reach her goal, which looks like a goal that someone's putting on her, which is fine in the beginning because she's going to eventually grow and change and decide, that this is what he or she wants for herself. But how do they do that? What does that look like? What other places will we be in? Because this bagel shop is great, but do they have other places that they frequent? So you can kind of start telling us about like our standing set, kind of thing, because these people so well. So it's like, well, what does this apartment look like? And will we spend time there? And what kind of craziness do they do in these places? But other than that, I think you did a good enough job for me to want to ask all of those other questions, which is the point,
Exactly. So bagels and gay Yoda. I'm going to remember that all day.
Oh man,
I'm going to remember that. And I'm going to remember
pitch line of the year.
That they bedazzled their costume. Their work, outfit. That's good. Great.
Yeah, this should give you a lot of positive energy to write this. I want to read this. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Jake.
Thanks, Jake. That was fantastic.
Thank you, Jake.
Thank you. Everybody's feedback is really wonderful. Okay, next up, we have David.
So we're going to shift gears here, and I'm going to pitch a horror feature called Psychopathogen. What if there's a virus that's symptomatic of the worst of what's in all of us? Psychopathogen is the story of two brothers who clash and compete. Kyle he's a pariah who all he wants is to get back into his family's good graces, and he wants to matter to his brilliant brother Ben, who's a regenerative medicine scientist. So when a coma patient, Mila, she's injected with stem cells, she wakes up and terrifying incidents start to happen at this medical facility. There's a wolf attack, and Kyle sees a guard attack another guard and kind of shapeshift after he eats his heart, and he transforms into the guard that he attacked. And all of this culminates when their father, Victor, is reanimated from his cryogenic frozen state. And Victor almost kills Ben, and when Kyle stands up to his abusive father, he vanishes. And Kyle proves that the father and the horrors that have been happening are actually collective hallucinations. And so they're triggered by a mind virus or psychopathogen. And while he's struggling to inoculate everyone at the facility against the virus, he realizes that the real foe that's out to destroy him is his brother. Now, anyone with a brother or sister can relate to the complicated love-hate aspect of these relationships. And Psychopathogen it delves into the darkest drives and wickedest wishes of sibling rivalry.
Thank you, David. Can I ask a couple quick questions? So how should I start here? First of all, I think approaching the particulars of family dynamics is a great way into a story. If you don't have a brother or sister, it's hard to explain how you can love somebody so much and yet at the same time want to kick them out a window.
Exactly.
And so I guess my first question is just a practical question. Where does the virus come from?
So the virus is, they're injecting coma patients with stem cells, and the older brother, Ben, is using his own blends that are coming from his father, Victor's work, which are outlawed, banned animal blends.
Got it. And what's the purpose of putting the stem cells into these coma patients? Is there like some sort of are they trying to reach some sort of cure? Or what's the reasoning for doing so?
Right. So there are about 30 coma patients, and they are at this facility trying to revive cognitive activity.
Got it. So it's trying to stimulate the brain.
Exactly.
Got it. And so would you say the primary relationship in the story, it's between these two brothers? Is it like kind of a Cain and Abel thing? Like one of them is just jealous of one of them's jealous about the accomplishments of the other? I'm trying to get to the core of what the primary relationship is.
So the older brother is very accomplished and has a lot of accolades and just really doesn't want the younger brother to be recognized. He is kind of shunned and the black sheep of the family, and understandably so. He's just been to rehab, and so the older brother regards the younger brother as, a black sheep, but ultimately he just is really competitive with him and cannot bring himself, he feels humiliated when the younger brother steps up and is able to figure this out and take action.
And which POV are we approaching the story from? Are we going to be in the younger brother's POV, or are we going to be in the older brother's POV?
It's from Kyle. Kyle's the main character. It's from his POV.
Got it. Okay, cool. What would you say is like a good, because once again, it's incredibly difficult to pick, because I can tell the hard part about these like kind of psychological thrillers is like it's such a tonal mood piece with a lot of twists that it's hard to really get those across with a complex plot in 90 seconds. What would you say is a good tonal comp for this movie? Like when you were envisioning it, like what would you say it's in the same realm as?
I'd kind of put it in the same realm as possibly The Thing or Ex Machina, because I see it as maybe 5 minutes in the future in a post-COVID world.
And would you say that and sorry guys, I'm completely monopolizing this one, but I'm trying to get to the core of it. Would you say that?
Great questions.
Yeah, would you say that the crux of the story is that you have this younger brother who always feels like out of place in the world, like, idolizing his older brother, and then the twist comes in the fact that like through this whole mechanism of him like giving these people these injections, he's the one that realizes that his brother is not this like, godsend, but really like the evil one in the first place, and then he has to stop the brother? Is that the whole concept?
That's basically it. He realizes that his brother's been unethical with these injections, and yet he still thinks that he can bond with him until he has the ultimate realization that his brother is out to destroy him and is not united with him on his side.
And why is his brother out to destroy him?
I think his brother just has a kind of a complex about him and doesn't want him to be recognized. He wants all the attention. He's always gotten all the attention, and he can't take it now that his younger brother is here and showing him up.
I speak from my, I always like to say my parents got it right on the third try, because my little sister's a doctor and I went into a very film-centric oriented place. So I'm constantly jealous of my little sister. Is it based on a personal experience of yours?
I would definitely say I full disclosure, I do have a brother, but you know, it's just really mining, like you said, if you have a sibling at all, it could even be a friend, but it's just mining that really sort of competitive nature and taking those dark things and twisting them, turning them up to 11, and just letting the kite fly and running with it.
I appreciate that. All right. Thank you, David. I'll stop monopolizing everyone else's time.
Thank
Those are
you.
the questions I would have had if this were a pitch.
I'll jump in. First of all, I love how supportive everyone is in the chat. Everyone's always saying go to whoever's coming up, and congratulations to you guys. So my comment is going to be generally speaking, but can obviously be helpful to you. The hard part about pitching something horror, science fiction, fantasy, psychological is that the rules have to be very clear or you'll lose everyone, right? So being able to spend time, which is why 90 seconds is probably not going to be the best, option for something like this, but being able to spend time setting up this world, because it's different from the world that we live in. So we really have to understand, what is this world that we're going into? What are the rules of whatever's happening, and what's the why? Like, the antagonist becomes just as important in these kind of films, because their why is one of the motivations for what the protagonist is doing. But at the end of the day, depending upon how grounded it is, then you can focus on the relationship. Because as you can see from some of the questions that you've gotten so far, if I can attach myself to the relationship, I might suspend my disbelief on the rest of it until we can get to the questions to really understand, okay, who, what, why, blah, blah, blah. So those are just some options. But if nothing else, setting up that world and making it very clear what the rules are here and what's happening, and then getting us to just attach ourselves to those relationships can help you get through this 90-second pitch that you have. But then we don't necessarily have to spend time on trying to understand in our questions. We can start talking about more of the details of what happens after that. So great job.
Exactly.
Thanks.
And I think, like, from a macro standpoint, as you can see, a lot of the questions that I've been asking to everybody that's been pitching are mainly character based. And I think the reason why, at least for me as a person, that I really always come back to that is, I think, especially for a story like this, I'm going to steal from a much more accomplished filmmaker in Steven Spielberg, in which, like, when he was making Jaws and all the decisions that he's made with Jaws, he said, no, like, hardly anybody has ever been attacked by a shark, but everyone's been swimming. Right. And so to me, it's like, I'm never going to be a doctorate that, is trying to save the world through a experimental stem cell injection. That's just not me. But I have had a sister that I'm jealous of. Right. So if I can attach to that, then it makes the rules and everything else that, happens in your world just easy to digest. Right. And so my big fear is that, especially dealing with family, is that I'm not going to get validated by my family's love. And so to have a brother that I idolize and that I'm jealous of, and that all of a sudden, like, you realize that even though they're accomplished, they want to destroy you because they were jealous of you. I think there's something like, or for whatever reason why, I think there's something really needy there that you're getting at, that if you can get to that relationship, then everything else is just a fun genre window dressing way in. So
my brain as a development executive, I'm actually going to veer a little bit differently from what these guys have said. I think you have some really great elements in this idea. I love your title. It's great. I can see it on a poster. I can say, the movie's called Psychopathogen. People know exactly what it is. I love the idea of what your virus does. It the way that it attacks the brain and makes people hallucinate, kind of the worst in what they see in others. I love that element of it. And what Sandino said, not everyone's been attacked by a shark, but everyone has gone swimming. At this point, not everyone is a doctor, but everyone has dealt with a monstrous pandemic with a terrible pathogen. So I think you have a really good opportunity here to turn this into an allegory, a fable. Right now you have a really personal story about two brothers, and I am seeing blow it up. What if this virus got out? What does that look like on a worldwide scale? Can you turn it into Bird Box? Where what that world looks like. And then kind of back into that more personal story. I want to know, what does it look like if you have this virus and you're walking down the street, or you're trying to go to the grocery store, and all of a sudden you have an attack of, where you're seeing everyone around you turn into, monsters or whatever it is. How does that affect society at large? And then how do your characters, respond to that? In terms of, from development of the idea, that's kind of where my mind goes. And I like I said, I think you have some really sellable elements to the story. So keep working on it.
And do it in 90 seconds, everything she said.
Yeah. And those are great jumping off points. This story itself is more contained, but in the end, the virus would get out and contaminate the larger population, but that's later.
One thing that I will say to be, everyone should be wary about, at least at my studio, what we're looking at coming out of this COVID-19 crisis is more aspirational and less dark and dour, because our philosophy is that everyone has been contained and quarantined and depressed for the last 3 months, and it's going to continue. So I would caution everyone to keep thinking about, what the audience at large might like coming out of this. And so if there's a way, like if this were an actual pitch and I were to buy it, one of the things that I would caution you is to have some sort of like aspirational or cathartic ending, as opposed to something that's dark and dour and dreary that reminds people of what they've just been through. So that's a contextual thing.
That's exactly what I was going to say too. And you guys all gave such great feedback on this. I'm just going to pivot to something just about the pitch itself. I'm really grateful after coming off of the last pitch, which was very upbeat and light and fun and friendly and all that. You came up, David, and you said, "Okay, guys, we're going to shift gears here." That was great because it set us up for this. It didn't take us by surprise, and then suddenly we were all depressed coming out of that going, "Oh my God, Jesus." But what I would suggest would be give us a little bit more of that segue into what you're getting into. So you don't have that luxury when you're sitting, waiting to go into a meeting at an office or meeting someone for coffee. You don't know the last pitch that executive or, any one of us just heard. But in this scenario, you did. So capitalize on that by, in your head before you start your pitch thinking, well, they just heard this really upbeat pitch about this really fun story, this really, nice young kid telling this story. Okay, now I've got this really dark sort of twist that I'm going to throw at these guys. Elaborate on that a little bit. Say, okay, guys, we're going to make a dramatic shift here, but here's what we're going to get into, and bring us a little bit more into that world before you just hit us with everything that your pitch was. And your pitch was great. It's a very strong pitch. I can't elaborate more on what everyone else said, because everyone nailed the tone, the relationship, all those things that we would want to know more about if this wasn't a 90-second pitch. So that's my 2 cents for what they're worth.
Thank you all.
Hey, thank you, David.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, David. Thanks for hanging in for the year to wait to do your pitch.
Trademark that title, good sir.
It always takes longer.
David was a year. He was the one who waited a year.
Yeah.
God bless you. Dude. Bless your patience, my friend. Thank you so much. That is
also, look at how much the world changed in that year, and the effect that your pitch is going to now have on people because of just a year. That's crazy.
It's all about time.
Yeah.
Thanks, Molly.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Okay, next up we have Chris.
Hey, Chris, how you doing, man?
Fantastic. I've been just sitting here holding my breath.
I saw your comment, Chris.
How Wi-Fi gonna work? I just was so terrified. So I'm so ready for you guys to this pitch. I'm so ready.
We're so happy to have you, man.
Growing up in a large family, I vividly remember watching every episode of Charmed with my brothers and sister. After I earned my master's degree in television producing from Boston University, I wondered if I could create a television series similar to Charmed. What if, instead of 3 women balancing being witches and sisters in San Francisco, I took that same idea but centered the show around 3 brothers living in Chicago? Think Charmed meets Empire, but probably without the music. With that in mind, I created the show Fallen. Fallen is an hour-long supernatural drama series that follows 3 brothers as they fight the Nevers, a dark psychic force that attacks the minds and spirits of innocent people. Each episode will follow the three Moreland brothers, Wes, Braxton, and Miles, as they balance using their supernatural powers to fight the Nevers and the arduous reality of being Black men looking to accomplish personal goals. Fallen would not only provide an intimate portrayal of Black brotherhood, but also tackle issues regarding mental health in today's society. I believe wholeheartedly that people want to see complex, dramatic stories filled with soul and supernatural fight scenes. I hope you feel the same way too. Thank you.
I really liked your video. Was that all footage that you have shot specifically for this? Did you, or are those pulled from other series?
Pulled from other series. My intention in signing up for the project was just to try to create like a vision when I did the 90-second submission. So I took clips of Charmed, I took clips of Empire, I took stock videos just to articulate what it was I was trying to say to convey the vision.
Good job.
Okay,
Great job.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, the
great job.
technology failed, but I thought it was good.
No, I mean,
I thought it was great. I love the
well
effort.
done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely gave me a good idea of what the show is, what you want it to look like. I think an interesting question to ask yourself is who is your audience for this? You know, Charmed and Empire are both heavily female audiences. And I love the idea of three Black brothers and that relationship. I am just wondering if there is an inroad for women there as well. I don't know exactly what that would look like. You know, Empire is very sexy. You know, that kind of thing. I'm not really sure.
Sure. I think that when you just have, like, my intention was really to create a show that was diverse and that was fun. I loved Charmed and I love supernatural elements, and I just think it's very important to put a Black perspective on that, because when I think of shows like Grimm, I think of shows like Supernatural. I get it, but I don't really have stories that look like me that are supernatural abilities. So I feel like that was kind of what my intention was, to say, like, hey, Black people can create television shows that are supernatural, that are fun, that are badass, just like Charmed, with also adding the intersectionality of like masculinity, sexuality, and mental health, to create a show that really could start conversations and really get people thinking and talking and viewing Black people differently.
Absolutely. I love that. And I agree with you. I think it's totally necessary. You know, I'm just thinking about the trailers, and of course you have a lot of that mystical elements to it, and I think that could really work. But just think about where you would take this pitch out, I think is what I suggest. But I love it. I don't know where I personally could sell it.
Yeah, and if I could just jump in and put on, I'm going to pretend that we work together already and that I'm repping you. The first question I would ask is similar to Quinn. I would actually ask you, could it be two brothers and their sister, and have the female component in there? Because I think that, you know, that is it's more than a trend in storytelling today to have a strong female character as a protagonist. And I think you limit your audience by having it be about three brothers. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think that if they're all siblings and you have the diversity of having a female sibling in there as well, you broaden your audience tremendously. And I think that can be a much more potentially successful commercially viable concept, to have some more diversity in there, having a sister along with her two brothers. They're all siblings or whatever, that, or half sibling or a step sibling, doesn't matter with the relationship, but having that so that would be something that I would immediately ask you. If you had pitched this and say, hey, Matt, I got this new project, checked out this concept, I'd say, wow, that's a really unique concept. I love what you did with the 90-second trailer, the sizzle. It really captured me. I want to hear more, but would you consider this? That would be the first question I would ask.
Would you ever consider doing it as a feature, Chris, or are you dead set on a TV show?
I was dead set on a TV show because the main conflict between the protagonist and like the Nevers, the evil people, is like the fact that it's a procedural. So every episode, it's a different person and a different type of mental illness. So episode 1, alcohol addiction. Episode 2, bulimia. Because a big other part of the component that I wanted to add is I really wanted to raise the consciousness and have conversations about mental illness. And I could feel like I could do that by having every episode tackle a different type of illness in the series.
Interesting. And so like, is it like a metaphysical like embodiment, like every bad guy is like an embodiment of a certain disease? Is that the intention?
Yes, it's
Cool.
like the Nevers. And the way I see them in my mind is like shadows, like possession, because I think so often in pop culture, there's people who are like normal and okay, right? And then they've kind of like fallen. Think like Britney Spears, from Oops, I Did It Again to shaving her head off. She fell, she was fallen, she had an issue. And I just I've had personal experiences with people who kind of have go through issues. And I wanted to articulate that. I wanted to show that and make it in a way that was sexy, fun, badass, and Black. And that's how I came up with Fallen.
Cool.
That's your pitch. That's
yeah,
your.
that's. I mean that's
the
cool.
video.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying here. I'm trying.
Well, this is why you have the pitch documents and why we also sit down in a room, frankly, because it's how you extrapolate. Like the 90-second sizzle reel is just meant to give you the tone, just meant to give you like the overarching things. And Talking to You is where we get the clarifications of that, right? And Shayna, if you may, can you send that video at least to me and everybody else who wants it? Because I feel
please.
like there's something
Absolutely.
that we missed just
For sure.
Glitching of it. So we'd love to take a look at that.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you're ever interested in turning it into a feature, let me know, because I think I view it as more like the craft. And if there's a way that you can do that in 90 minutes to 2 hours, that might be interesting. So
Chris should be saying right now, as a matter of fact, here's my pitch for the feature film and the television series, the limited series, the graphic novel. What do you need, Sandino?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Buffy was a movie before it was a series.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Everybody
Thank you, Chris. Good job.
Everybody's kind of hit on most of the things that I was going to say. But one of them was, it was very clear that the three brothers were doing something with the Nevers, because I know the top of the video we didn't really get to see. But when it did start working, the first thing that we heard was, this is going to be about three brothers who do X, Y, and Z. And so that's great information. What I missed and what may have been in the video is exactly what the Nevers are. Right. And so because we talked about it here, I got to hear it, which then brought me to my second point that Sandino just said. Seeing you and hearing you talk about it is far more interesting than watching the video.
Absolutely.
Far more interesting.
Yeah.
But that's because I'm going to get your personality. That's because you're going to remember to tell me about, right, exactly. You're going to remember to tell me about some of those things that make it more clinical in your video, right? Because my next question was going to be, okay, so how? So what are we seeing them do? So I missed the whole, it's case by case. Like I didn't get that until you said that here, right? It's case by case. We're going to see this, the Nevers look like this, and then this is what the brothers are going to be doing. So then I would have really understood what was happening. And you know that information, but if that video would have been in the room without you, I wouldn't have had anything to hold on to.
I know exactly what the show is going to look and feel like just by talking to you. So
yeah, just by talking to you. So this is your strong suit. You are one of the writers who can just open up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So utilize that. We can look at the visuals later. You know what I mean? Like we want to hear from you because there's just some things that we're missing without being able to have this. And I also think that even though I agree that we're now looking for women, X, Y, and Z, I might not have realized it had I been talking to you. Had you just been saying, you know, hey, so we got these three brothers who do X, Y, and Z. I just would have been listening to what the brothers are doing. I wouldn't have, really been thinking about, oh, I'm only watching men. You know what I mean? At some point, I would start to assume, well, there are probably some women around here somewhere, but I would be so intrigued by just hearing the story that I wouldn't have focused on, what female leads matter right now. That may have been a conversation that comes down the pipeline, but it wouldn't have stopped me from being interested and invested in their story right now. But I think the visuals kind of do that because we just keep seeing these men and we don't see anybody else. And so now we're going to start focusing on that,
Thank you. I really do appreciate it. This was so fun. Thank you all so much.
Hey,
there was no need for you to be so nervous. You're obviously very great and comfortable in a room. So don't question your own instincts.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, last but certainly not least, we have Rachel. She was our other winner.
Hello.
Hey, Rachel, how are you?
Hi, how's it going? I'm doing well here in sunny Los Angeles. Thank you guys so much for bearing with us here. And congrats to all the other winners because all your pictures have been so amazing. And I want to see all of them made, please.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Rachel Lako. I'm an LA-based filmmaker. My scripts have been finalists on NBC Writers on the Verge and Sundance Episodic Labs. I'm pitching a dramatic coming-of-age feature film titled Violet, Violet. Based on true memories of my past, this character-driven story explores mental health, PTSD, sexuality, and most importantly, the power of vulnerability. In this non-linear narrative, we follow a broken-hearted Violet, who is hung up on her ex-girlfriend Sunday. Violet sleeps with basically anyone who gives her attention. But at least she still has her first love, music. Violet is a talented music producer and DJ and a badass spoken word artist. With the help of her loyal BFF and manager Harper, she gets Violet the deal of a fucking lifetime and signs with a top record label. But Violet needs to finish an entire album in just a few months. Slowly, we unravel Violet and Sunday's relationship back to when they were just teenagers in the early 2000s and coming to terms with their sexuality, and all the way back to Violet's childhood in the early 90s, where the source of her present-day pain lives. In a dream, we learn that at the tender age of 7 years old, Violet was molested. By who? We have yet to find out. We follow Violet's spiral into her past as she moves into a journey of healing. To tell us and every sexual assault survivor this one simple truth. There is hope in the breaking of your bones. Your body is your home. Thank you.
That to me, that is a perfect, like, if you were to set up the tone of what a pitch would be, that I get exactly what type of film that I'm going for. I started an independent film, and so this is a great conversation starter for me to like really just go into like a just much more comprehensive conversation of exactly what relationship you want to tell. And I want to address, like, real quick, we'll get back to this pitch, but I want to address a lot of the comments in this section over here about character-driven stories. Character-driven stories are incredibly difficult to tell in a pitch, at least a character pitch, or at least in a feature pitch. And so in that regard, like, that's why, in my opinion, like, most times when we have like this type of pitch, at least when I was in independent film, this is when it's accompanied by a deck, if not the actual script itself, because it's just so hard to get into the minutia of what make these characters work in a 90-second pitch. But I do know that Violet's troubled. I do know that she has a goal, a stressful goal of actually trying to make this like deadline that's inherently going to give some sort of self-destructive play, trying to get there. And so now the questions that, you know, at least I want to ask is like a little bit more of the plot elements of this pitch. Like, exactly, like, what would you say is this kind of like ticking clock mechanism that's going to like keep the plot moving while these characters are going through their traumas, so to speak?
Right, absolutely. And I completely agree, because I think that was one of the most difficult parts for me in like crafting the pitch, especially 90-second pitches. I know that this is inherently a very much character-driven story, where the plot is a little bit secondary, which is super different from, you know, a lot of feature films where it is plot-driven. And the plot is really simple, whereas to Violet has this deadline for this top record label, or else, you know, she'll be dropped. And I think what helps in kind of moving the story along is that because it's told in a non-linear narrative, we go back to flashbacks of, you know, when we see her relationship with Sunday when they were in teenagers, and all the way back to when she was a child in the 90s. And so I think that helps kind of break up I would say some of the like character driven things that may not be as move the plot as forward.
And so would you say that the story in a nutshell is that this is her big shot, right? If she gets this done, this is what's going to make her or break her, and the obstacles in her way are her own self-destructive tendencies brought about by this physical abuse? Would you say that's what it is?
Yes, definitely.
Fantastic. Cool.
Yeah, that was going to be my response as well. That in these character-driven stories, at least you have given her a goal, right? And her goal is to make this album in X amount of days. So understanding that the only reason we care about the flashback is if it affects her in the present, right? So being able to show us in the pitch, even though it's 90 seconds, right? But being able to show us exactly how it complicates her goal. That's the part that we want to know. We want to know how going down memory lane is going to complicate her reaching this goal on time, and then what the stakes are of that and why they matter, right? Because there are plenty of people in the music industry who don't make their deadlines. But what does that mean? You know, why does it matter that she get this thing done at this time? And if she allows herself to be self-destructive because of this stuff that's coming up from her flashbacks, what is she going to miss out on other than making an album? You know what I mean? Like what's really attached to that deadline that's more internal than it is external, that's really going to mess her up if she doesn't get that. And then now we can see this through line of plot, even though it's connected to her emotional
character. Right. Absolutely.
What kind of music do you intend on using? Like what's the
I absolutely want to use a lot of original music. I'm sort of I wouldn't say I'm per se a musician, but I have also been practicing it a lot. I'm also an actor, and so I want to be using a lot of original music, and especially for me, what's really important about this story is using representing a lot of my communities, the queer community, Asian American community. So I want to use a lot of queer Asian American artists as well in the film.
Is your intention to write, direct, star, and do the music for this?
Originally, yes, but that's a lot of hats. So I know how difficult that is. I've done that many times, and so I'm very open to like co-directing, or I have a very specific vision for it. So, but I know how difficult it is on set to also direct and be the lead actress.
I mean, this is me putting on my indie hat, right? Like this seems to be such a specific story that really like you're doing yourself a disservice by saying that, like, you know, you want somebody else to do this. It feels to me like the way that this pitch should inherently go is you write this screenplay, you say you obviously you know how to edit, you know how to put together a tone reel, like you say like this is my story, I'm going to write, I'm going to edit, and then just go out for financing. I mean, like it seems to me that like this needs to be your story. It doesn't seem prohibitively expensive. You know, I would say
absolutely
this should be your story. Absolutely. Like you should, if you're looking for like to really express your specific voice in this type of story, like say you're going to direct it, say you're going to act in it, say you're going to star in it, you know, who to read
absolutely,
it to.
Yeah. I do. No, you're totally right. The script is done, and I'm at this point where I'm looking for producers and financing.
Well, send it to me. I'll read it. Like
awesome.
this is usually what I used to do. Like this is, I mean, you know, great.
Yeah, we'd be happy to.
I will send it over.
Yeah, I mean, these are like, I mean, these are I always call like and obviously it all comes down to execution. I need to read it, but like these types of stories have done well, like they're festival bait, right? I mean, it's the type of thing that like you can absolutely put through the Sundance Labs, as you said, and all that stuff. And so this is generally, you know, something I like to read.
Yeah, and on a more macro point too, I just want to piggyback and say this pitch was so clear and concise and well thought out and put together. And if we were meeting for rep consideration, I would literally ask you like, what else do you have? Because I'm intrigued by the way that you presented this pitch. I would want to know what else is in your portfolio. What do you have ready to go right now? Because you are ready to be out there pitching and being in the room and quote unquote room, the Zoom room. But that's where my head is at this point too.
I have a lot of material, so I can send those to you as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
But I mean, like, and this is like best case scenario, just once again, we all talk about like knowing your voice and like finding your voice. I mean, it's like that it seems to me a very personal story for you. And like, if done well, like, you know, it's, you look at like perfect examples of like Lulu Wang, who had such a perfect story with like the farewell itself. It's such a specific story, but it affected everybody, you know, on a personal level, on a universal level. And now she can do whatever the heck she wants. So it's like being, you know, be confident in that voice. Yeah, be confident.
Absolutely, right. And a lot of the actually all of the footage in that video was ones that I've shot in my previous projects.
Wait, you shot
that's great.
stuff?
Yes.
You got this.
Wrote and direct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much. Oh, also, I just wanted to say, Quinn, for you, I know Dennis, and he's been a really good friend of mine and a writing mentor. So like when you were talking about LA Ultra, I was like, oh my God, I know like the entire journey of that project. So I just want to say congrats on, congrats on LA Ultra, because he was telling me about like literally since the beginning when he was developing it, and then all up until they started pitching. So yeah, he's amazing. So congrats on that.
Yeah, he is. Love him. We're really excited about it.
Thank you guys so much. This is really helpful.
Thank you. That was a great way to wrap up.
Wow, you guys, I am blown away by the generosity of the panelists. Number one, for being on here for 2.5 hours, which I did not foresee. And so thank you for hanging in and for being present and giving such fantastic feedback the whole way through. Thanks everybody for being on this call. These comments, you guys are so like, this community is so supportive. It's amazing. And I'm probably gonna start to cry in a second, but I really, really mean it. I mean, that's why we started these events in the first place 6 years ago in person, to start relationships. And the fact that it's actually continuing now just on a comment thread is amazing. So thank you for being a part of that.
Molly, if you cry, I'm gonna cry. And
no,
then,
sorry. Okay.
Everyone barfs everywhere. Like, we can't be crying, everyone. Come on.
Right? Oh, that'd be good.
Can I, if I may, just like say like some sort of like wrap up thing, just that I want to say, like, for all of you that are actually like pitching out there or like so worried about your pitches, like it all comes down to just making sure that you're prepared, that you know your story, and that you realize, especially for us, like, I mean, I don't know if you can tell from this like 2-hour talk, like I speak in run-on sentences. Sometimes I try and find my thought like in the middle of a paragraph that I'm speaking. We're all human too. We're all like us executives. We're not like these, you know, some of us are, unfortunately.
Man in the high castle.
Yeah, exactly. Most of us are, once again, we want you to succeed. We're very human. Nothing excites us more than finding an amazing story. So when you go into those pitches, just remember that like we're human. You know, we're all just trying to find something amazing that we can hopefully make together, and that, you know, come out with a great film on the other side. And so like, I think if you guys just approach it that way and just be passionate in your story, and just remember that like we make mistakes too. We're not perfect like creatures that are just trying to tear you down. It's really going to help you in, you know, your pitch. So I just wanted to bring that to head.
Someone said early on in the comments when we first started 2.5 years ago at this point, they said execs are always trying to find a way to say no, or trying to find a reason to say no, true or false. And I replied to that by saying that's false. We're and you nailed it, Sandino. We're all trying to find the reason to say yes to you. That's what this boils down to. I don't want to, I can't imagine sitting here, you know, taking my time when my 3-year-old's pounding on the door like, can I come outside now? I want to play. I'm not going to waste your time. I don't want to waste my own time. I'm rooting for you. I want you to be the project or the writer that I want to work with, that I want to invest my time and energy into. I did some with the ISA recently, which was a Q&A about my process and what we're looking for. And I want to reiterate the same thing here. At the end of the day, we are all investing our time and energy into you for free until, on my end, until we set up a movie for you or a TV show, until you get paid. This is my investment of time and energy. So I really want you to be the person that wins me over. That's what I'm always rooting for. And I'm sure we're all that way, right?
Yeah, we got into this business because we love telling stories as much as writers do.
Yeah. We just don't physically know how to actually put pen to paper. So that's why we need you guys.
And even on just the literal side, it's our jobs. So if we say no to everything, then we're not making anything.
Right.
And then our boss starts looking at us like, why did I hire you? So the point is for us to be working.
And once again, it's incredibly difficult. You writers have arguably probably the most like difficult job of this entire industry. Also, like, I'm a very sensitive person. I can't imagine what it's like. I have a hard time saying no to somebody. So like, to be rejected again and again and again and again, it really just like shows the resolve that you guys have, frankly. And it's a very difficult thing. And so like, whenever you get down on the fact that like you're not breaking through, or, you know, someone didn't respond immediately with like effuse praise for your script, just remember how difficult it is to do what you do, right? And it's exactly.
Look at David, he got looked over last year, and now his pitch is more timely than ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
You know, our job titles do not exist. None of us exist in this business without a creative mind, without the writer. That is the foundation that the entire industry is built upon. So remember that when you're going into pitch, that you are the creative, and we exist because you are pitching us something. So we appreciate that.
Thanks. That was a great way to wrap it up. I also just want to say for the next things to check out our events page. We have 2 events next week. On Wednesday, how to get an indie film financed and produced. Jaron is leading that one, and his whole crew that he wrote and directed his own feature last year, and so you'll be hearing from that crew. And then on Friday, conversations on screenwriting contests with a whole bunch of great contests like Austin Film Festival, Holly Shorts, etc. There's a bunch. Okay, so that's it for now. Everybody have a great weekend. Remember to go on Twitter and tweet out your favorite piece of advice so that you can be eligible for some awesome prizes we have from our sponsors. Salute Your Shorts, Microfilm Tournament, The Guide for Every Screenwriter, which is a book, Capital Fund Screenplay Contest, Changing Face International Film Festival, and CineQuest. Okay? All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you again.
Hey, bye everybody. Good luck.
All of our panelists. You spent 2.5 hours or longer with us. That's incredible, and I really do appreciate that. I know how busy you all are, so I really do appreciate you spending the time here. So,
sincerely, amazing
like
that you
half
did
a
that.
James
Thank
Cameron
you so much.
movie.